I'm back! If you want to know where I've been, there's a private little video here. If not, no worries. It's time for us to finally look at Super Mystery Dungeon. This is the only game in the series that I hadn't already played before starting this channel, so I had no idea what to really expect from this game going in. So, let's look at Super Mystery Dungeon together and find out how the final entry in such a wonderful series pans out. Oh, and fair warning, this whole video is going to be discussing the whole game, beginning to end. So consider this your spoiler warning if you've not played this game, but you still want to. Come back after you finish it, okay? The first thing that strikes me is that I'm pretty happy that the quiz is back, but they've iterated upon it as well. No more restarting again and again if you don't get the one you want. This time, the result of the quiz is more of a suggestion than anything else. But man, does it add a lot of charm instead of what you had to do in Gates of Affinity, where you just chose whichever one you want. That being said, the roster this time is huge, consisting of all the starters up to Generation 6, plus Riolu, of course. Considering the previous game's paltry selection of 5, these 20 starters are pretty nice. That being said, I do miss oddballs you got from past titles. You know, Machop, Fanfi, Skitty, Vulpix, Munchlax, and even Axew. It's not a huge issue, especially considering the past entry, but I'd have liked to see a smidge more variation. In any case, so I heard you like Mudkip, so I decided to be one this time around. As for Fox Burrito, well, I had to go with the fox, didn't I? This game starts with a blurb about how the sun and the earth and all life are bound together as one, and you see Deoxys encounter Rayquaza in the stratosphere, which is weird because Rayquaza usually inhabits the ozone layer. Apparently this is a big deal, but hold the phone a bit. He finds Rayquaza in the stratosphere and is weirded out since Rayquaza is usually in the ozone layer? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the ozone layer is in the fucking stratosphere. Is this an oversight? Do they mean the mesosphere? Actually, they probably just meant the outer stratosphere, but it's a little bit of strange writing here. Anyway, the game doesn't give us enough time to dwell on that, as it's time for us to have our "where am I" moment. You wake up not knowing where you are, or who you are, or what you're doing, but as you look into a little pond, you see that you've in fact turned into a Pokemon. Shocker! Who would have thunk it? However, this shock is short-lived as you quickly get attacked by 3 Behem. As you try to escape, you run into Nuzleaf with a southern accent who helps you escape. He takes you to Serene Village where he lives. Since you don't have anywhere else to go, he takes you in as your adoptive father and tells you that you have to attend school because you're apparently just a kid. Big miss there, Nuzleaf, I'm actually much older. But whatever, I don't exactly know more than an elementary school kid about this world right now, so okay. Serene Village is not only beautiful and, well, serene, but is also where you meet your partner throughout this adventure, and all sorts of antics unfold. We'll return to the story not too long, but let's discuss the differences in gameplay between this game and the other ones in the series first. A friend of mine once described Pokemon Mystery Dungeon like this. You play as a reverse otherkin and explore stupid blazes filled with mindless killing machines while your friend stares at your butt the whole time. Alright, there's some truth to that. You're a Pokemon in the Pokemon world who vehemently believes they're human, and most of the gameplay takes place in a randomly generated mystery dungeon consisting of an unknown amount of floors full of corridors and hallways. Combat takes place on a grid where you and your party can use a variety of different moves and items to dispatch enemy Pokemon, whom for the most part don't really seem to have a mind of their own. Simply summed up, it's a tile-based, procedurally generated, turn-based dungeon crawler. Previous games have tried to mix things up a bit, and some ideas have been better than others. I really like how in Gates to Infinity you could upgrade your moves by continued use, sort of like how you upgrade weapons in the Ratchet & Clank games. Huh, is that a series I should tackle sometime? Anyway, upgrading moves is back in Super, and so are most of the items. But this game is actually pretty different in many regards. First of all, I find myself a little disappointed they didn't expand on the very limited open area puzzle solving elements of Gates to Infinity. In fact, they're not even there, but the differences run deeper than just that. The game's pacing is completely different from previous games. In previous games, you could do other missions and requests indefinitely, only doing the story when you feel ready for it. This meant that you could always be at a comfortable level advantage, you could stockpile items, you could take your time and do stuff when you felt like it, regardless of how urgent the situation is regarding the story. It's kind of like how you know Ganon has total reign over Hyrule Castle and is slowly expanding his influence. And here you are, just fishing! Go save the fucking world, you bastard! In Super, however, you're strung along the story exactly when it happens. You're not given a choice in these matters, so when the story comes knocking, you better be prepared. This makes the pace of the story go much quicker, but it also means that you're not given the opportunity to really grind stuff out at the pace you yourself would like. This means that your levels will usually never be much higher than anyone else in the dungeons you visit, so there's a much larger focus on using items to help you accomplish your goals. This goes hand in hand with a new set of items unique to this game only. Wands. I'll get back to this later. With this added focus on items and the forced story progression, the game feels a little more tense, I think. And I genuinely think that's a big positive for the game. There is one way you can grind stuff out in this game, and that's heading to Pelipper Island from the main menu. You'll grab some other unrelated Pokemon from your main team, and you can go into dungeons from there. The experience points are shared between all Pokemon, so you can use this to level up your main duo. However, you can't do any requests or any interesting missions from Pelipper Island, so if you were to try to use these as a way of grinding, you'd probably grow tired of it extremely quickly. I barely even tried it, and I got straight up bored by it. That being said, I don't think this is something you need to do either, because overall I thought the game was pretty easy. I didn't struggle anywhere in the game, unless I got someplace I definitely shouldn't have been yet. But those were the outliers rather than the norm. All in all, what all this means is that the story is pretty well paced. The combat is more based on items instead of just traditional Pokemon moves, but you have less control over the difficulty of the game. Just because I myself found it to be easy doesn't mean that everyone else will, so this could be a point of contention if you are the kind of person who loves grinding out missions and breezing through the story. In any case, you've just arrived at Serene Village. Dad Leaf tells you that he's going to enroll you into the local school, so while he's gone, you meet your partner Pokemon in a scene that just feels very anime. She shows up in a trail of sparkles and then starts showing you around without you ever getting a single word in edgewise, before you get to the town square where she gets jumped by everyone for causing trouble while she's out on her little adventures. Oh boy. This sets up the character as being a little, hyperactive and hard to deal with. This is perfectly demonstrated when she later asks you if she can be annoying sometimes. You calmly and analytically say that she does drag you into trouble quite often, and while that's fun and you appreciate her very much, every now and then she can actually get a little bit annoying, yes. And she's fucking devastated. Starts ugly crying and stays home from school for a couple of days. Jesus, talk about an overreaction. I guess in that sense it's very realistic because I know a certain other fox who overreacts to every little thing.
Hey!
I'm kidding. Sheesh.
Let's see if you think sleeping on the couch is funny too.
Hold on. Wait, I didn't mean...
No! It's done! Fuck you!
Anyway, school is... well, it's school. Or a tutorial in this case. It's here you first get to play around with two of the new mechanics. Alliance attacks and Emerus. Alliance attacks are pretty much the team attacks from Gates to Infinity, only now you can trigger them on command at the price of a little bit of your belly. Oh yeah, hunger is a part of this game again. These are rather powerful as they ignore type disadvantages and are especially useful against bosses. Shame I always forget about them. Oops. Emeralds are small sparkly stones that you can put on looplets that team members can hold. They give various effects to the team members holding the looplet, but are removed when you leave the dungeon. These effects range from simple increase in damage to revealing items or enemies on the current floor. If you're familiar with the IQ system from the Rescue Team games and the Explorer games, you will certainly recognize many of these effects. You can also use the Emerus instead of equipping them to get a small stat boost. They also have a turn timer which counts down the time before they shatter. This timer starts as soon as you enter the room, and if they shatter, you can pick up the residue to eventually create a new Emera in your inventory. Personally, I adore the Emera system. It scratches that wonderful RNG itch that makes you just go, oh, just one more. And it does the same thing to me as getting a wonderful weapon in a Battle Royale game does. In fact, this RNG progression loop is what those games are built on, so it's no wonder it's so fun in this game as well. You also learn how to use items like the wands I mentioned earlier. Wands can do a variety of things, like apply status effects, warp you to the first thing the beam hits, etc. They are sort of like the orbs from previous games, but single target instead of hitting everyone in the room. They're not quite as powerful, but they have the distinct advantage of stacking, so you can bring multiple ones of the same type without wasting several precious inventory spaces. I've heard the beginning drags for a lot of people, and I can see why. Luckily, there's more than enough stuff that happens in Serene Village to make it interesting enough to keep my attention. You befriend your other classmates, Deerling, Goomy, Pancham, and Shelmet. The latter two being a little douchey towards everyone else. They're the cool kids of this class. Oh, and Esper is there too. I love her. She's basically like Revolver fucking Ocelot, and I half expected her to tell me to turn off the 3DS halfway through. Anyway, you end up exploring and solving mysteries here and there. There's actually a mystery regarding some nighttime attacks by the Satan of the Pokemon universe. Your teachers start losing their memories after the attacks. Your classmates are scared out of their hides, but after just a little sleuthing, it turns out that it's just a bunch of Litwicks causing mischief. This whole mystery ends up making Kissy Kissy here and the asshole panda warm up to you a bit, and as my friend Skywolf said, if nothing else, you get to see those two piss themselves in fear, so that alone is worth the hassle. All this serves the purpose of getting you invested in the world and in your friends, because it's not going to last. Sooner or later, you meet an Ampharos who is genuinely just an awful character. Actually, strike that. I actually really like Ampharos as a character. He's great, but what I don't like is his gimmick. His whole shtick is that he's got an awful sense of direction. Alright, but I don't know if this is a thing with the localization or if the writers didn't know what a fucking direction was, but Ampharos bumps into everything and everyone because he's lost? That doesn't make any sense at all. If you're in a new place and you're lost, you don't bump into everyone. It's your sense of direction that's messed up, not your sense of basic fucking sight. I hate this part of Ampharos because it really does not make sense. It comes across as a gimmick and it detracts from his overall character. When they don't do this, he's great, he's funny, he's well-spoken, he's supportive, he's adventurous, he's smart. All the great qualities for a guild leader, unlike a certain other guy who basically acts like a big baby. In any case, Ampharos makes you honorary society members, since kids can't actually join the Expedition Society, and then goes back home to Lively Town. As you become honorary members, you also get to choose your team name. We chose the Foxolotls because, well, Fennekin is a fox and Mudkip is an axolotl. Not that your team name really matters. The game doesn't put a lot of weight on it, which, thanks to my memory being fuzzier than a Rockruff's butthole, meant that I didn't even remember it at the time of writing. Anyway, there's a bit of friction between Fox and the rest of the village. So one fateful night, you two run away in hopes of joining the Expedition Society. It's got a touching moment where your classmates grab hold of you as you're running away. Not to tell you to stay, but to make sure you don't leave without saying goodbye. The various grown-ups also support you leaving, despite urging you not to go the day before, according to the letter the other kids give you. To tell you the truth, this was really nice, and it made me feel a little sad that I had to leave this cute little village I had come to call home. From what I've heard, this is a somewhat unpopular opinion, since most people just want to leave as soon as possible to get the real game going and get the freedom to do what they want when they want it. And I get that. I think it might have something to do about where you are in your own life. I think a lot of people who play this are young people who are ready to break away from their family, who doesn't really understand what it is to be young anymore. They want to get out there, get into the world, and prove themselves independently. If you see the game through those kinds of eyes, I can easily see why people think the beginning of the game just drags on for way too long. It's easy, you're coddled, you know all this stuff already. Just let me get out there and do my own thing. But in my case, I've already proven myself. I've got a full-time job, I've got an apartment, and I got my master's degree. As such, I don't mind the more laid-back nature of Serene Village, and I appreciate the friendships and the tranquility that much more. I think this is a strong point for the game, since it offers different people different emotions. For some, it's, yes, I finally get to leave. And for others, it's, aww, but I like this place so much. In both cases, it elicits different positive emotions in the player, and I can appreciate that a lot. After traveling for a while, you finally get to Lively Town, where the guild headquarters is. Or rather, the Expedition Society is. These guys are not too different from the guild from Explorers, but man is it different at the same time. Unlike Wigglytuff's guild, these guys are welcoming and helpful, and the leadership seems competent. This is both something I really like, but it also feels a little bit like wasted potential. I say this because there's not really a lot of growing the guild members do in this game. They're not terribly flawed, and what flaws they do have, they don't spend time trying to overcome. In Explorers, they at least had flaws. Some were a little dickish towards you, but gradually warmed up to you. Heartwarming stuff. You had to earn their friendship, whereas here, you already have it as soon as you meet. There's even this part where they accept you even though you're children, and that's sort of against the rules. I'd have liked to see someone refuse to acknowledge you as one of them, but slowly and surely change over the course of the game. In any case, the members of this little society are Weasel, Archon, Dedenne, the communications expert, Bunnelby, our digger, Swirlix, the cotton candy that eats everything in the goddamn world, Mawile, the archaeologist and historian, Ampharos, the capable leader, and finally, Jirachi, the astronomer. As you do missions in Lively Town, you rise through the ranks, get more allies in your team, and you start hearing whispers of Pokemon turning into stone. It doesn't take long before you find Latias and Latios' petrified bodies following a crash landing. You run into Entei at the same time, and he's convinced that you're behind this. You might have noticed from the footage that there are more towns than just Serene Village and Lively Town, yeah? There's actually several other towns you can go to, and they do seem to tie into the previous games. It's filled to the brim with fan service, as you can meet some wonderful old friends. Oh my gosh, it's Emolga Dunsparce! And it's not just some random Emolga and some random Dunsparce, these are the ones from Gates to Infinity! Aw, man, what a nice little meeting that was. And this isn't the only one either. As I said, this game is filled to the brim with stuff like this. Genuine charm to meet these guys just standing out in town like this. There can also be some really creepy ones like this Parasect here.
I, the mushroom, have full control now.
That's creepy, I love it. Exploring these towns to meet other Pokemon is heavily encouraged as well. Going around and talking with Pokemon you haven't met yet adds them to your connection orb. What is a connection orb, you ask? Well, it's pretty much Facebook for Pokemon, and all the members of the Expedition Society have one. And because I am old and bitter and dislike anything remotely modern in my games, I have to shake my cane at this tomfoolery. Blast it, I say! Alright, to go into a bit more detail, when you talk to Pokemon in towns, they might have requests or missions for you. This is another big change from the previous games, because instead of the postings on a request board you had in previous games, you are now connected through what I can only describe as Facebook. You do requests from acquaintances, and after you complete their requests and become Facebook friends, you can use said Pokemon in your party. This means that you no longer have to beat the shit out of 500 different Sevipers, as you just hope to God that one of them will be masochistic enough to join you. Now, you just do its request and you're buddies. After becoming buddy-buddy with one Pokemon, it might introduce you to its other Facebook friends, and this in turn might make you able to use them in your party as well, or it might unlock more requests. It's pretty neat from a gameplay perspective, but to be honest, it's not nearly as charming to me as the old school request boards. This is a bit cold and impersonal, which kind of is exactly like using Facebook. This also means that you can never befriend more than one Pokemon of the same species, unless there are differences in gender. There's only one Vaporeon you can get in your party ever, but there are two different Blazekins, as the Fire Chickens here have two variations based on gender. This becomes weird later on if you decide to evolve some Pokemon, as it now means that there are two of the evolved type, but you'll never be able to get the previous stage again. I'm not sure how I feel about this decision. It makes it easier to get every single Pokemon if you're into that, but it also feels a little off to me. In any case, when you actually do a mission from your new Facebook friends with benefits, you get this little party screen. This is where you choose which Pokemon you want to take with you on the mission. It actually oftentimes doesn't have to be the main two doing these missions, which opens up more customization based on what your task is. It makes it easy to pick the perfect team for the job, assuming they're up to snuff in terms of levels and moves. The big twist here is that you're not necessarily able to use all the Pokemon at any given time. You see, after using a Pokemon which isn't one of the main two, Pokemon may just have to take a break. The stronger they are, the longer their breaks are as well. This makes it so that you can't just choose that level 50 Salamence for every single mission, so it's a clever way to balance the game out a bit. I tended to only use stronger mons when I lost something that was way higher level than I was, and I took it personally. Each mon you take with you also has their own dialogue written for them. It's just one line most of the time, but the effort is certainly appreciated. And it helps it make it so that bringing a Paris with you is at least a little bit different personality-wise than bringing an Oddish. The charm of talking to Pokemon inside and outside of dungeons is in such stark contrast to the Facebook nature of the connection orb. That interface is so cold and sterile. I don't know, I just really prefer Pokemon to be using bulletin boards made out of wood, maybe with a little bit of moss on it and such. Of course, the Facebook thing makes much more sense practically. If you're fucking lost, how do you put this on the bulletin board, huh, you fraud? But while the bulletin boards don't make that much practical sense, it does seem to make more thematical sense. At least to me. Pokemon are all about being animals, finding them in nature. Their diversity in species make them dependent on being close to the diversity of nature. It just feels wrong to me to have a hologram network be the thing that visualizes the bond you have between each other. But I digress. What the fuck was I saying again? Oh yeah, Entei, right. Entei is convinced you petrified Latios and Latios and confronts you about it. Seeing Entei sets an entire goose chase in motion, with a final confrontation with the beast at the Fire Island volcano. After beating, but not really beating him in battle, you find out that you have Deus Ex Machina scarves that allow you to Sailor Moon your way to victory in your final evolutionary form if the plot demands so. Now, I'm not saying this whole scene is stupid, but let's just say it's one crayon short of a box. That, and it's anime as fuck. After defeating Entei, probably with the power of confusion alone, Ampharos steps in and declares the truth. Back in Lively Town, you find ransom letters that point out that someone are targeting the legendaries of the world. And it says here that the next victim is going to be Entei, whom you just kicked the shit out of. Ugh, here we go again. So you rush back to that poser, but you're already too late. He's been turned to stone. Well, tough shit, but at least you have a suspect, Crocodile, a 2-bit thug who hasn't been interesting at all up until this point. He's been spotted rushing up Revelation Mountain back in Serene Village, so you rush after him. Once you get there, there's not really time for a teary reunion, but you say hi to your friends and meet up with Nuzleaf in the process, who accompanies you up the mountain. On the top, there's this weird pyramid barrier, where your partner for some reason can read ancient hieroglyphics. She says a lake underneath the barrier is an antidote for the petrification, and only a human can break through it. The only person who can read that shit, and the only person who can open that shit, happen to be here at the same time. How convenient, huh? Turns out there is a reason for that. This was a plot hatched by Nuzleaf, who turns out to be a villain working for Yveltal with the express mission of fucking dooming the world. And they turn you guys to stone, as well as Suicune and Raikou, who crashed the party to avenge Entei. They also drain the water that can turn Pokemon back to normal before they set out in the world to attack more Pokemon. Okay. This is the game's first real plot twist. It's nice to go back to Serene Village and see your old friends, but the issue here is that I feel like they were really trying to make this into something shocking. Not because the twist is stupid, no, it's not really stupid, and there's a different twist coming later on that is stupid, but this one's okay. The issue was that this was something I caught on to so early on, I didn't feel like the twist was earned to me. I wish it was a little better. See, Nuzleaf has to mysteriously leave from time to time, and he is part dark type, yeah? Come to think of it, it would be fun to see a story where this prejudice toward dark types was addressed. Wait, that's kind of exactly what Gates to Infinity did. Never mind. The point is that I saw it coming from a mile away, and I would have liked them to be a little more subtle about it. That's just me though. I might have been lucky that I fell into that line of thinking early on, so if you didn't see it coming, then more power to you. I wish I had your experience. Anyway, you wake up in the Voidlands, which is just localization speak for hell, and you must Kratos your way out of there. Unfortunately, you don't rip out the central nervous system from the Pokemon you meet there. You just sorta do the same thing you always do. But you're still trying to escape from hell, so at least that part is like Kratos. You meet up with the other dead society members, plus the legendary dogs, and you find out about an ancient evil called Dark Matter, born from the negative emotions of Pokemon. It tried to destroy the world in ancient times, but thanks to the effort of Pokemon and a single human,
Plus the super common cosmic event where all the stars align just right.
Dark Matter was defeated. However, it would one day rise again. It appears that this is what is happening now as well, only this time it's targeting the Tree of Life. Should that tree die, the planet will be dragged into the sun? Okay. Well, whatever. We continue trying to make our way out of hell with the legendary dogs accompanying us, being complete douchebags the entire time. As we reach the end, we get to a door back to the real world. The issue is how heavily guarded it is. The legendary dogs try to push us through the door while they hold everyone else off, but we won't leave them. They explain that they were dicks towards us so that we would not feel remorse when we had to leave them, so we should just go. We don't. We just stand there and we argue. You stand there arguing as the door is closing, and they wanted to be dicks towards you so they wouldn't have the argument you're having anyway. It ends up feeling really tacked on. If they weren't being rude, nothing would change. It feels like there's a redemption plot being shoehorned into the story, but it doesn't feel genuine, and therefore it falls flat. The game feels like it wants you to suddenly feel sorry for them, but I feel like they were just being dicks to everyone for no reason. Ugh. Anyway, we're almost done with the story, so I'll speed it along. You come back to the real world, leaving everyone else in hell. Good job. Serene Village and Lively Town is mostly petrified already, but the society headquarters is fine for the moment. And so are its admins, who have done their own research on the Black Matter case. And the shopkeepers are fine too, because I guess they have plot armor. You meet one of the BHM who assures you it's a good guy who knows the way to the Tree of Life. So you follow it right into a trap, you naive fuck. Nuzleaf confronts you and reveals that you were the human who once stood against Dark Matter in the past. But you suffered from amnesia after a psychic attack from one of the BHM in the beginning of the game. Noticing this, Nuzleaf and the others hatched a plan to make you trust him and open up the barrier on top of the mountain. Before Nuzleaf can petrify you again, Ampharos, Jirachi, and Celebi appears and swoops you out of there with a neat little teleportation trick.
I bet Nuzleaf is angry you had him monologuing now.
You're teleported to the foot of the Tree of Life, now almost completely taken over by Dark Matter. It will die if you don't hurry. As you try to enter it, Nuzleaf and the gang confront you again. You beat the shit out of them and Dark Matter's mind control is broken. This doesn't matter much because the whole fucking tree is lifted out of the ground by Dark Matter, who's threatened by your presence. Do you remember I mentioned how anime this game could be at times? Look at this! After falling back down, God himself telepathically tells you that Ampharos had been rallying up allies for the cause, and with the help of some other legendaries, you're transported to the roots of the tree. The final dungeon is ahead, and you're going through it in your final evolved stage, just like with that battle with Entei. At the core of the dying tree, you find Dark Matter, who transports you to a little pocket dimension where you duke it out. At a vulnerable moment, Dark Matter sends out a blast which petrifies gosh dang everyone, even God himself, and strips you of your evolved powers. As things seems darkest, Yveltal, Nuzleaf, and the BHM arrives wanting to atone for their sins and helps you crack the core a bit. From then on, it's just you and your partner left. Bam. 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 In a very Earthbound-esque way, the world is praying for you to succeed. Dark Matter says is only going to keep doing this again and again, but you, the player, accepts this, reasoning that it has a place in the world as well. As Dark Matter shatters, there's a faint little thank you on the screen. Yay! World is saved! You go back to Serene Village to celebrate, and then you prepare for the age-old tradition of all the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. The final farewell. Turns out, you're not actually the one who has to leave this time. your partner is. Turns out your partner is the reincarnation of Mew from ancient times and has to go because reasons. It also tells you that Mew was the one who wiped your memory back in ancient times to prevent you from making the same mistakes you two made in the past. And then the partner leaves. This is the first time an ending sequence has not made me cry. In fact, I almost didn't feel anything in this scene. Could it be because I was streaming the whole thing? Perhaps. But I know I was also just confused. If Mew wiped your memory way back then, how could Nuzleaf's plan have existed in the first place? All he did because you lost your memory when fighting them in the beginning of the game. This is a plot issue I've been talking with a lot of people about, and it still bothers me. I have not gotten a satisfactory answer to this, with some people saying you regained your memory before fighting them and then losing it again afterwards. And others still saying you never really regained it,
But they somehow knew you'd wake up there after being respawned by Xerneas.
None of these answers really satisfy me because these are efforts to explain a hole created by the story itself. And if you accept either theory to be true, it just reflects poorly on the writing as a whole. This could, of course, be something that has been lost in translation upon localizing the game. Lord knows it's happened before. Hell, we thought we understood most of Dark Souls' lore before we found out that we were misunderstanding a whole lot because of shoddy localization. But localization issue or no, all I have to go on is the English version of the game, and there seems to be a glaring plot hole in it. Maybe you guys in the comments can help shed light on this issue. To me, the ending really didn't do it for me. To be fair, I think the story as a whole didn't really do it for me. It's overall pretty cohesive and really well paced, but it sort of lacks that X factor that makes it special for me. It feels like it goes a little bit through the motions, and that is a little bit of a shame. Maybe development got rushed a bit, or maybe they were focusing on other things. To me, this game is a little bit like what Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain is. The gameplay is excellent, better than it has ever been in the series so far.
But the fact of the matter is that I don't really come to this series for the gameplay.
I never have. I come to this series for the story, and the story here feels like a lot of stuff happens for a little bit too little payoff. For the record, I did play through the postgame as well and experienced all the story that had to offer, but it didn't change much. There's an interesting twist in how to present the narrative, but ultimately I feel like that too could have been handled a little better. To sum it up, I wish they'd leave little clues on how to get your partner back and let you explore on your own. Piece it together on your own, instead of being handheld through more story segments. I wish they made you earn it because you wanted to get your partner back, not because you had to in order to complete the story. You know what I mean? I've spent over half of this review talking about the story. Everything in the moment feels really important, like it builds up to something, and you know what? It does. I do like Dark Matter and the plot there. I like seeing how all the expedition members react to impending doom. I love seeing Dark Matter have a voice and actually do stuff. I think the ending with Dark Matter thanking you is a wonderful payoff to everything you've achieved. But you know what? All that overshadows the partner. The arc about the past and the issue with the memory loss. And ultimately, I think the characters are the most important parts in these games by far. I ragged on how stupid the story was told in Explorers of Sky. I ragged on how stupid the story was just in general in Gates to Infinity. But both of those had characters that would just stick with you. Super has a much better story than both of them, memory loss aside. But it doesn't really do much with the characters you have. Also, unlike Gates to Infinity, I had nothing personal to relate to the partner in Super. You weren't dwelling on the knowledge that you had to leave, wondering how to do it. It's actually your partner leaving, but the partner doesn't seem too sad about it.
It was more like, I gotta go. No, don't leave me. I have to.
It's a little underwhelming, and it doesn't feel like they gave that point enough time to stew. I love the gameplay of this game. I love finding emeralds to power up. I love the pacing. I love the focus on items. I love the different continents you can go to. I love the adorable little cameos from previous games. I love the friends you made in Serene Village and the Expedition Society. But ultimately, the climax just does not focus on any of these because of the much larger threat of the world being destroyed, no matter how silly that threat actually is. I mean, killing a tree leads to the planet being hurled into the sun? Yeesh. I think that I've realized that I prefer stories which are much more personal.
Saving the world is all well and good, but I find the most compelling characters are forged in stories about personal goals and losses, instead of global goals and losses. Super gets close, very many times, but for me, personally, I'm sorry, it did not reach that goal. So when the game ended, I didn't really feel that much. I've tried to articulate these feelings in so many ways, but in the end, I think this is the best I can do for now. I do want to say that I really appreciated this game for what it was though. The story might not have hit me where it counted, and I'm still iffy on some gameplay mechanics like Facebook and how there's only one Pokemon of each kind, but that's alright. This game feels like a proper send-off to the series. And in a Famitsu interview, Pokemon CEO Tsunekazu Ishihara says that this game is a culmination of all the games before it, and they don't know where they could possibly take the series from here. In the end, it might not have affected me as much as I wanted to, but I do know a lot of people like this game and I'm really happy for them. This series is all about trying to find positivity where you can find it, whether it be from a sense of belonging, a sense of friendship, a sense of home, or just a sense of serenity. As a final wish from me, if we do get another game in the series, this is what I would hope for it to be. I wish it was a game about something much simpler than saving the world. I wish it was about something much more personal. If they bring in the Amnesia stories as they always tend to do, I want it to be because you used to be a horrible person. Imagine if you found out at the end of the Fugitive arc in Rescue Team that you actually were the one responsible for abandoning Gardevoir. Imagine if you were actually a terrible person and the people chasing you were right. It's easier for the partner to support you when they don't know that you're to blame. So imagine if you find out that you are to blame. Imagine the possibilities for the story and the characters. The partner could leave you at that point, leaving you with a crushing sense of complete loneliness. You could explore what it means to atone for one's sins. If you did something horrible a long time ago, but you've lost all memory of that, and you've sort of changed completely as a person, do you still deserve punishment? Are you still responsible for your actions? Things like this could be a prime target for future exploration of the series and would serve to really dig deep into what it means to be a partner in these games. To tell you the truth though, this is something that I've come to think about after the phenomenal comments of this user who really helped me think about the first game in a different way. Huge shoutouts and huge thank to you. And with that, I think that wraps up the Mystery Dungeon saga on this channel. I've got 2 ideas stewing still, which is talking about which of these games are my favorites and why, but I also do feel like I should finish the post-game of Explorers of Sky so I can release an addendum video on that game. You guys have made it perfectly clear that I've not actually finished it by just graduating from the guild. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for your patience for me to release this video. I've almost been gone longer than grade A under A has. And of course, in the absence of video, we've gotten a lot of fan art, which is just completely phenomenal. I absolutely love what you guys have been doing. You guys seriously rule. Speaking of ruling, I'd like to give a shout out to this video's ruler of the galaxy, Zack Attacker. It was him that Dark Matter was tanking at the end of the fight, so thank you from me too. He's my top patron this month. Anyway, while I'm at it, I would be extremely remiss not to include a ginormous thank you to Skywolf as well. Not only did he help me make this massive beast of a script flow better, but he also made this amazing thumbnail for the stream VODs over on the gameplay channel. And I think that's it. Have a phenomenal day, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ha det bra.
Wonderful. I finally reached you. How are things going on your side, sir? I see. Fox and Focie are headed to the prehistoric ruins as we speak. Right, I understand. Then I won't try to call them back. Yes. If anything changes, I'll be sure to let you know. Mr. Nuzleaf.